And now I'm looking forward to this. On stage A in Leipzig at 35-3, one of the most exciting artists in the world, Nico Zemsrott. Hello. How's it going? It's a great honor to be the last thing here today. Many thanks for this invitation. I'm going to do a worst off today, of my solo program. Happiness is just a lack of information, and I'm a demotivational trainer. I'm going to start with my favorite joke. It's also the joke that best represents Germany. It's a trick question. How often do we have the word love in our base law? And it's in a word that has nothing to do with love at all. What does defeat mean? Defeat is my subject since I came to this world. I think that society is assimilating to my life. I thought it would happen differently. Defeat is wanting minus, is wishing minus ability. In order to be defeated, you have to want something. If you don't want anything, you can't be defeated. Worse than defeat, or even more exciting than deceit, is not even trying. So I think you should always be very happy, very respectful towards everybody who has suffered defeat because they tried something. I published a calendar of defeat together with my brother Arne, amongst others, and I want to present you 5 of these defeats, because to me and us it's important to talk about defeat more often, to normalize defeat. And I will present you with 5 examples. The 21st of April 1959, Gary Creeman starts his website Match.com. His girlfriend meets another man there. That was in 95, I imagine. The 4th of June 1923, during a horse racing, the jockey Frank Hayes dies from heart disease, but reaches the finishing line the first time. It's his first victory. Reaches the finishing line first. In 1976, Ronald Wayne sells his share in Apple for a few dollars. The 17th of July in the 1800s, in the USA, somebody, a lawyer, tries to restage a crime and shoots himself. 14th of August 1977, the Australian Alan Jones surprisingly wins the Formula 1 race in Austria. Nobody there knows how to play the Australian anthem. A trumpeter starts to play Happy Birthday. I was told that you don't like advertising, but this slide is already in there. My online shop is kannstudierschenken.de. Oh yes, introductions. But it's not awful. Let's start by singing a song together.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, and you know it. Okay, der Raum ist groß.
Okay, it's a large hall.
Genau, dann wollte ich noch wissen, wer hat mich
Alright.
schon mal live gesehen?
Who of you has seen me live before? Just to give me a rough idea. That must be at least 30 people, that's great. Who's seen me on TV or YouTube?
Gegenprobe, wer hat noch gar nichts von mir gesehen?
Okay, who's never seen anything?
Für euch wird es eine harte Stunde.
It's gonna be a rough hour for you.
Dann stelle ich mich jetzt selbst noch etwas ausführlich
To present myself a bit more, this is my very boring name, but at least the initials follow the European trend.
Mittlerweile bin ich meinen Eltern sehr dankbar, dass sie
I'm very happy that my parents didn't call me Simon. I'm born on the 11th of March 1986. This has two components: the Chernobyl disaster and the date of the Fukushima disaster. It's really helpful for me to remember this. On my 18th birthday, I witnessed. There were the Madrid attacks on the 23rd, the Wind school shooting, and I'm excited to see what else my life has to offer. I grew up in the suburbs. The suburbs combine the drawbacks of the countryside and the city. And I grew up in a terraced house, which combines the drawbacks of renting and owning, high cost of living, and lack of privacy. That was when I was 7 at the bird park. My satirical education was received fittingly at a Catholic school. We had a book of prayers, and every morning somebody had to recite a prayer. My favorite prayer was, "Dear God, please allow us all to remain healthy and stop the war in insert current area here." After school, I was confused like so many others. I didn't know if I should go right into unemployment or learn something, and I decided upon a compromise studying at university. Once there, I wasn't sure if I should continue or stop, and I decided on compromise of studying economics. That's not true, I just put it in there because it works. In fact, I dropped out of my sociology studies after 6 weeks to concentrate on my depression. I could have well done that while studying, because sociology is essentially that. But I thought I would stay true to myself and become a demotivational trainer, and I would give my life until now 1 of 5 stars. I'm good at doubting, I'm good at resigning, and I'm good at demotivating others. And then I wondered what I could do with these abilities, and then it came to me I could become head of the Social Democratic Party. But then I thought, I don't hate myself quite enough for that, so let's become demotivational trainer. Right. But I was considering removing this gag from the presentation, because you're not supposed to joke about the deceased ones. 1 out of 5 stars, and this is 0 out of 5 for erotics, 0 out of 5 for action, and 2 or maybe 3 for undecidedness. I'm not quite sure. All in all, that's 1 out of 5. And if I had to comment on my life, I would say would not watch again. As a demotivational trainer, I have some great successes. For example, I'm an alcoholic. This, for example, is March 2014. The dates highlighted in red were when I had to drink, when I drank, and the reasons. Munich, Munich was okay sober as well, but then it took a few days to recover. I landed some viral hits on Facebook and YouTube, got lots of feedback. I was told I'm a whore of the system, being financed by the system. That's an absurd claim. I can tell you who pays for my pays for me. That's 58% mum, 40% dad, and this won't surprise you. 2% of my gags are financed by the Syrian Association for the demise of the German people. I would like to popularize a way of thinking that I call positive negative thinking. It's positive thinking plus negative thinking, which equals positive negative thinking. Positive thinking would be the glass is full, negative thinking would be the glass is empty. So, all in all, the glass is fully empty. In our society, we often, or at least in the neoliberal part of our society, we often assume that positive thinking is constructive. This has not shown to be true in my life. I think positive thinking is destructive, and you can see that in all large-scale projects in Germany. For example, if you... I personally, if I think that this airport thing is going to work out brilliantly, then you end up with a negative result. And if I think about it negatively, I often end up with a positive result. So pessimists will often reach their goal sooner than optimists, because optimists don't imagine there to be problems and then get surprised by them, and pessimists already took those into account. Here's an example. The positive question is, what do I want? The negative question is, what don't I want? And if you think about life negatively, your goal is to be unhappy, and then that's very easy to do, and reaching your goal makes you happy. But if I say I want to be happy, then I will notice that there are lots of options, there are billions of options, and most likely if I choose one of the available options, I will wonder if I couldn't have chosen better. So I can't really reach my goal and I become unhappy. So that's the proof that a negative approach will lead you to happiness, is more likely to lead you to happiness than a positive approach. And that's the question I would use for all my life. What decisions can screw up my entire life? And so I should look at life from the deathbed. Things you hear you rarely hear on a deathbed. I wish I'd spent more time at the office, or I wish I'd listened to my parents when choosing my profession, or did I turn off the stove when I left? And before you lie on your deathbed, what happens then? This is a schematic drawing of the entire life. There's birth and death, and lots of emptiness in between. And because this is really hard to bear, people fill that with silliness. We spend our life in groups debating what silliness is right, and that's what humanity has always done. 10,000 years ago, people wondered why there is lightning and thunder, and somebody proposed a god of thunder, and everybody was very relieved and said, yeah, we'll take that. And 160 years ago, we in Europe thought that bloodletting was a great idea for healing illnesses. So that that makes it very unlikely that somebody will one day think about us that right, they really got things right. So if we're honest with ourselves for a while, there are only two things we can believe in: either all the bullshit that's already been rejected, or the bullshit that hasn't been rejected yet. And fundamentalists believe in bullshit that's already been rejected, and people who believe in enlightenment believe in bullshit that hasn't been rejected yet. I would like to talk a bit more about fundamentalist bullshit, because that's been getting quite a lot of tailwind in recent years. Now we'll talk, and I will use the example of racism in the AfD, in the German right-wing party, because fundamentalists always simplify. We should not do that as people who believe in enlightenment. Therefore, I would like to differentiate explicitly. There are not simply racist, not only racists in the AfD, there are also people who think racism is fine. Those in the blue part of this this chart are those who are open-minded.
How does this debate work? That the racists think that we are not racist, while then the stupid people say, "Oh, good, very good. Then is everything good?" Of course, there is this principal problem that in the democracy that we talk about, there are other opinions, but now we're talking about this tolerant paradox, that this tolerance against the hip tolerance, or about the Luxembourg freedom is always the freedom what everybody think of, but what it actually is, what other people think is that the thing that everyone is saying is the same? Let's talk about it again. How does this battle of the races goes? So first, every other people are less valuable as we are. And then the democratic people think like, please leave this activity. And then the racism says, democraticers, why are you just for Nazis? That is... somehow it doesn't work as I want it to. I think this is a live hacking. No. I also talked another fully about explanation and fanatics. I actually couldn't understand them because from all of different of the praxis, like the explanators, they first talk about the facts and then make up a story. But while the fanatics, they actually first make up a story and then try to find a fact according to it. Let's look at some of the examples and let me have a look how this. Every people is made out of different kind of personalities. For example, experiences, religions, political ideologies, psychology, health, social image, and then we come out with the fanaticers, people they're just Muslims. And let's take this another example. Like, there is this phenomenon that there is an increasing social inequality happening, and then we can find out like what it leads to. For example, they have equal machines, low cost. The salaries from others are lower, and there's also like immigrations, demography, and this finance crisis has just happened in 2008. And we find out from all of these reasons to come out like then the fanatic says, okay, international people should go out. Because actually from the left to right, you can never come up to it. It's actually quite it's quite a imaginary work. A third example is this phenomenon of that attempt to, for example, a lot of the racists are under 53 years old. Like, that is currently not up to date anymore. Since summer 2017, it should be like an under 64. And I want to refuse to change this folio because I'm not ready to accept this bullshit fact.
Maybe the most interesting thing is that 97% of the mass murders are committed by men, but I didn't say anything. So maybe let's be rational about it. So about the insane people, maybe we could try a human-friendly approach and improve the care for these kind of people, and maybe we take care of that, or instead we could just prohibit burqas. So we just go back to the source. So yeah, there are some studies about this. Men who wear burqas have a very high potential for aggression. I found the debate about the shooting in Munich very exciting, because one racist with migrational background was shooting another one, and basically the right-wing party in Germany said, yeah, we won't touch that. That doesn't make any sense. So the Democratic right-wing party was saying, okay, let's just use the army and use them on our own soil. So let's look closer at this. And what it essentially means is police is basically not capable to do it. So I asked myself, what is it that the army can do that the police can't do? So the first thing I came up with was we can bombard the inner cities. There were a few cities that got forgotten during the Second World War, so that's something the army can provide. Maybe we could just take care of that now. The chance that we hit the perpetrator in this case is also pretty high. So we should maybe try this in Dresden for a start. In the meantime, I'm not so sure anymore if the army could actually do that. In the summer I read that at any given time, only 4 of the over 100 Eurofighters are actually in working condition. So, at least in this case, I'm very happy to live in a country where most of the people actually just don't care. And then I actually thought that if the AfD, so the right-wing party, actually ever gets into power, then they need at least another 10 years to actually get the army back in working order. So it's the first time I thought, thank you a lot, Miss von der Leyen, the German Ministry of Defense. I think it's good that she actually takes hundreds of millions of euros and actually gives them to consulting companies instead of buying material and ammunition for the defense. I don't know if you know this, but a few weeks ago, both Macron and Merkel were actually proposing the introduction of a European army, and I wrote on Twitter, I think this is a good idea, but please use German standard. It needs to be very low in financing. It should never be able to take off. And somebody answered. I unfortunately forgot, but it was a great answer. Imagine it is a war and no one can go there. This is a play on a German pun. Sorry about that. What other things can the army do that the police can't do? So there's a humanitarian approach to just flood the inner cities, and there's another thing, we could just build schools next to a site of an attack, which is just a moment of confusion for the attackers. No one would take care of that. So then I had another thought, and I thought it was kind of weird, and I realized that Horst Seehofer, a Bavarian politician, is still part of the government, and sorry about that. Okay, what is this?
We give a face to crisis.
Yeah, we give a face to the crisis. What can I talk about in a world where there's so much crisis, where Donald Trump is the president? What is it that I, as a satirical person, as a comedian, can actually add to this? And 2 years ago, the party, which is the party, actually asked me to become their candidate. So I thought that's a great idea. So during the last federal election, I was actually asked to be the nominee, and this is what showed up. A journalist was asking me which crisis, and I said, yeah, which crisis isn't there? In my opinion, there's no part of our society that isn't currently in a crisis. For example, all the major parties are in a crisis, especially a crisis of gaining new members. This is the average age of all the party members. So the Greens are actually one of the youngest members, and then it just goes up to an age of 60 for. There's literally dead people in their register. I don't even know why we actually need a specific sub-organization of the party for the senior citizens. Someone's asking a question.
This also shows that the satirical party is the future with an average age of 34. It's named in the same sentence as the AfD. That's because both parties have roughly the same number of members. But AfD members die sooner. Another campaign poster. Non-voters vote for. I wanted to reach the largest group of voters in Germany, the non-voters. I thought there was a gap in the market there. I had a campaign spot that was shown directly before the evening news, and my approach was to convince people that if they don't care who sits in parliament, why not elect somebody who doesn't care either?
Wir sehen hier Screenshot.
This is a screenshot from that campaign video. I also considered to found a stay in bed movement in response to Sarah Wagenknecht's Rise Up movement, but I couldn't bring myself to do it yet. But this campaign video was the most shared campaign video ever in social media. But somebody commented that that's not surprising because it's also the one with the most actual claims. I actually liked campaigning, and I wondered when I could do that the next time, and I found out that there's a European election on the 26th of May next year, and I asked Martin Sonneborn, who's already in the European Parliament, if I could get the spot on the list below him, so second place on the list, and he said, all right. There's nothing decided yet. I think a week before the election we shall start campaigning, and the idea is to have a European campaign on the American model, and this is a preliminary draft. I'm going to try the slogan. I'm going to trial it here. Maybe if you like it, a possible slogan would be strengthen Europe, weaken Germany. My personal approach is that I would like to become president of the Commission, and if I become president of the Commission, I will establish democracy in Europe against the will of the citizens if I have to. Let's talk about my next subject, drug politics. I don't know how you feel, but I had to spend Christmas with my family, and as always, I wondered why I had to do that sober, and then I realized, oh, I don't. I can use incense, myrrh, and alcohol to get drunk. Alcohol is highly risky. So why can't I be under the influence of a drug that makes me relaxed? Or maybe that one that makes me fall in love with my family? The answer is obvious, because it's because drug politics in Europe is being made by alcoholics. Let's do a little quiz. And compared to drugs, substance A is changes the state of consciousness, has 1.8 million addicted people, and is responsible for 74,000 deaths per year. Substance B is also alters the state of consciousness, has 300,000 people addicted and 0 deaths per year. Yes, alcohol is the winner. It's legal, while cannabis is prohibited. And if you look at the last row of this chart, you also understand why. Personally, I don't understand it. In protest of this irrational drug politics, I take drugs myself. Mainly illegal drugs, of course. But it would be more rational not to take any drugs at all, but humans aren't rational. Humans drive car while tired, they play golf, and they smell the finger that they just used to scratch their private parts. That's the level on which humans actually work. Humans have always taken drugs, even animals that have access to narcotics use them. There's a clear need to switch off the light up there for every now and then. The question of whether or not there should be drug dealing is a silly question. The clever question is who should run the sale of drugs. And it can either be criminals or the state, but I have been told more than once that there might be an intersection there. Let's look at both questions. Who would profit from legalizing all drugs? Firstly, the economy, because selling drugs creates creates jobs, and that should really win me the debate in Germany. But as an encore, I'm going to carry on. The legal system and politics would, the police would also benefit because they could spend their time on more important things. Consumers would also benefit because they would no longer get dodgy stuff, but actually real drugs controlled by the state. The state would also benefit from more taxes, more money, hooray. But who would profit from carrying on as before? It's criminals. But those opposed to legalization say, I'm confused by change, we've never done that before. No, no, no. The year is 2018, and in Germany... and I mean the... And the question, how can we obtain money? The easy way to money is inheriting, and another way to become rich is being born earlier. Had I been born 30 years earlier, I would be much better off. And there are 3 arbitrary facts here. In 1987, people finished their studies at 28 in Western Germany, and in 2017, people finished at 24. This is a huge difference that was caused by the Bologna reforms. In 1987, people had protections against being fired. And 30 years ago, the the pensions were safe, and today, death, inheriting. It's very close together in German.
One of the big questions about the democracy is that the parents is going to determine what politics is going to happen, and that the parties is going to decide what's going to happen, and that's 15% of the voters, and then they are actually taking care of it. And the current average life expectation in Germany is 81 years old, and this comes from that they started from born at, and they are allowed to vote once they're 18 years old.
Das hier wäre ein viel logischerer Ansatz.
Now, until 63 years old, you're allowed to vote, and up, and then once they're above 63, they're allowed to say, like, hey, just be happy, you're still allowed to live. It's like anchor.
Neulich kam danach,
And currently it comes like there's another older gentleman coming to me that all of the ages are going to be discriminated, that they have this discriminated numbers, that this is not actually going to, like all of their years or the satyrs are actually just sitting around, and it didn't say anything anymore.
ja, weil das irgendwie auch
Well, it is somehow it's somehow fitting to the feeling, so I'm going to present another text about marriage.
wie mein Ferienhaus. Ich habe
My girlfriend is like my vacational house, but I don't have vacational house. And marriage is about High und Raten in German, and that's why it's about high and guessing.
Ich finde, es gibt bei
I found in the
einfach zu viel Erfolgsdruck. Hochzeiten
Ca-
sind
ca-
in einem Jahrhundert erfunden worden.
actually all of the
Älter wurden als 40. Wenn das Leben so kurz ist,
Weddings.
dann schon mal lebenslange Treue.
if they could be loyal to each other for the next 50 years, and then they say, okay, 5 years is okay for me. I'm also okay for the stress that during the wedding, to be honest, during this wedding, there's actually no.
Ich habe das Gefühl, ich werde gerade monatlich zu
I have the feeling that every month I'm being invited to weddings, and I had to realize that most of my friends don't actually have cool parties, but they're actually doing more like state receptions, and it seems that their aim is to add another facet to their own search for perfection. They're not marrying each other, but they're actually marrying the other couples.
Ich gebe mal ein Beispiel von einer Hochzeit, die ich am Rande erlebt habe. Das fing schon an.
I'm giving an example from a wedding that I sat on the sidelines. They had an invitation that had its own logo, and then there was 18 hours in a castle. There was a dress code, women with hats. If you hadn't lost interest in the whole thing, you could still see the whole history of the couple on a homepage. If the presentation has to be this nice, then there's something that has to be wrong with the couple. They actually did a whole photo series on the website. I don't even know how they did it. I mean, maybe they just hired the photographer in advance and then actually started dating. They even had a photo of their first date where they got to know each other. How is that supposed to have happened? One of the two actually had to have the plan in advance before even going to the first date, just to take out the camera and then ask the other guy, would it be okay if I take a photo now for our wedding homepage? The last photo in that series was from their engagement on the Valentine's Day in Venice. I wouldn't even be able to get to grips with that kind of series if they actually keep going from their first fight, from their first unfaithfulness, from their first divorce. Basically, it's a storyline that would be befitting of a daily soap, where after half a year you don't even know who's together with whom anymore. I didn't just think that, I wrote that to them. Among comedians, we have a saying, you'd rather lose a good friend than a good punchline.
Ja, waren aber nur bekannt.
Well, they were only acquaintances, though. I'm starting to realize, anyway, that it's getting harder and harder for me to have an actual relationship with other people, to have a new friendship. I recently had a talk with another lady during a party. She told me that she was working at the German bank, and so the Deutsche Bank, and basically I told her, yeah, well, no use talking to you anymore. Several acquaintances of mine were basically stepping in and saying to her, yeah, he doesn't actually mean that. And I reaffirmed that, yeah, I do mean that. It kind of caused a bit of tension. I have a fine sense for that. Other people would have done a joke about that in order to basically make the situation a little easier. But I started crying just to make the situation even more tense. I'm actually, I have a very hard time dealing with social things like other situations. I got a card introducing a new baby after birth, and do you know the situation where they give the child a really strange name that's really odd, and you can't really tell them congratulations because it wouldn't be fitting. So I thought about it for half a year and told them, yeah, good luck. Well, with some topics, I know I'm basically on the wrong side of the story, but I can't help myself. I know I should be more tolerant, but I really can't. Recently, someone told me the 11th of March, that's your zodiac sign is fishes, and I told them, shut up. So I added further that, yeah, fishes are really a very aggressive sign, you know. If against my best interests, I actually take up on the offer to go to a wedding, and I'm usually very, very offended. And there's sorry.
Recently applied for private insolvency. It would be so nice if you could buy your way out of these, but you have to actually collaborate, because there's always somebody who has the tragic idea of making a funny wedding video, or you may be employed as an editor for the wedding newspapers. If I ever marry, I'm going to do it out of revenge, and I will allow I will make my invitees do everything. Here's the address of the local hardware store. You have 1 week. Do your best. Of course, I'm on all of these dating websites, but nobody falls in love with me every 11th minute. Once every 11 minutes. And what I find so incredible is that everything is contradictory. For example, in private, I'm against slavery. There's no good way of finishing that sentence. But in private, I'm against slavery. But nearly everything I wear on my body was produced under conditions similar to slavery. But also my job is a contradiction. I can live from my criticism of capitalism. I earn a living with my criticism of capitalism, and I get invited more and more to company parties to lighten the mood at the company. All of these invitations are insulting to me, but I said yes by accident once. It was together with other people, and afterwards, somebody came up to me and told me your talk was the best by far because nobody else managed to catch the mood of the company as well as you did. No matter where I look, I end up in dead ends. I recently downloaded a program for unzipping files, but it was inside a zip file. Who does that kind of thing? You look younger on older photos. It's banal, but it still gets to me. Wikipedia says experts are people who know a lot on a certain subject, but experts also tell me not to trust Wikipedia. So I'm never sure what to believe in. I'm completely confused, and all of these are harmless examples compared to what's inside me. My internal conflicts are really huge. I often spend an entire debate looking forward to the moment when I can go and wank off. I mean, on the one side we're driven by our desires, but we're also capable of intelligent thought. But you always get back to your deepest desire, and then you go for shit. I like the reactions at this stage. One part is the relieved ones who say other people other people shit too, and group 2 are those who say no, I never go for shit. I like both reactions because they show that we in our neoliberal society of bullshit are embarrassed by our being okay. We shave off all the hair. We think it's disgusting when somebody farts, and you could take a more relaxed approach and congratulate somebody on being alive. And even once you have decided to keep optimizing yourself and becoming a machine, because that's the goal of the neoliberal bullshit thingy. It's becoming a machine and making ourselves more perfect. But even in this optimization process, there are contradictions. It's people often say, be a good person and have a career, but which of those should I do? Be yourself, lose weight. And that's the message that sums up the message of women's papers. Like Brigitte, be yourself, * -20 kilos. Listen to your desires, but behave yourself. Within myself, I never know if I should be myself or be a machine, and this conflict happens in everyday life as well. For example, when my smartphone says I'm going to update, I say no thanks, and it says it updates anyway, or captures online where you are supposed to pick the tiles that contain traffic lights or bridges. You know what I'm talking about. I play that for half an hour sometimes. How many times do you have to play it to advance to the next level? Oh, 9,999 times. All right, thank you. And I think this is so insulting. Why do I have to prove to the machine that I'm not a machine? I think this is one level below machines keeping us as pets. It's what we do with dogs. We let them do tricks and then they get a treat. And That's what the machine does with capture as well. Go look for the tile, find the tile, oh well done. Who's a good human? And then you get a reward and have to pay. Or when I take my bottles back to a supermarket to get my deposit back, and I try to return my bottles, and the machine tells me that I put it in the wrong way. I lose it and think, come on, you have an IQ of 0, but then again, who's the expert of bottles? And at some point, I call an employee from the supermarket to mediate this conflict, and then he puts it into the machine and tells me that I probably inserted it the wrong way, and I have no idea how I can leave from that experience with my head held high. I sometimes drive a car to gigs, and I notice that cars don't really need you anymore either. They just watch you all the entire time. Recently, a car told me that it had detected tiredness. So, while still on the motorway, I moved to the back bench and to have a nap. But the car didn't like that either and called me back to the driver's seat. So I opened the windows and got an eco tip that informed me of increased air resistance and to ask me to close the windows. So but I refused to accept an eco tip from a Volkswagen car. And then I closed the windows again. I often asked if you wanted the funny end or the sad end, but these days I go for simply the end. I think the next talk is tomorrow at 10:30, so we have a few hours. But I don't want us to run out of memory or run out of internet. Because I've already thought about internal conflicts, I would like to admit something at the end of this demotivational workshop. That's that I'm terrible in bed, and I no longer think of this as a bad thing, because being bad in bed means that you have had sex. I'm sensitive, and sex in my life is not self-evident. It's more an act of encouragement. But I would like to have a threesome because it would give me the opportunity to disappoint two people at once. Every time I watch porn, I think that that's not the way life really is. But that's the same thing I think in everyday life. For example, when I watch advertising, when I'm on Instagram, when I get a wedding invitation, when I read job offers. Job offers really make me wonder from which parallel universe they came. Live your passion selling screws, or live the adventure of controlling. Good luck. But of course we're surrounded by fakery, and it's very natural. Living beings try to get advantages for themselves, but we compete with 7 billion other humans on this planet, and of course that gives you a huge pressure to succeed. And I think to lighten that pressure, we need to learn to deal with defeat. And I would like a YouPorn of defeat where people people don't climax. That sums up my past 5 sexual encounters quite nicely. There are more options. Turning off the other person so much that it has to end. Falling asleep. Having an argument that happened to me recently. I just stopped because I couldn't handle the pressure anymore. I also wondered if I could end this workshop with a strange gag like that about my defeat in bed, and I thought, yep, because that's what interests me. Enlightenment and politics and my defeat in bed. Why should I pretend at this stage? It reminds me of a gig I did. There are just 3 minutes left, no more punchlines. It reminds me of a gig I did 2 years ago. I was in a psychiatric clinic as a birthday guest. That clinic turned 20, and I've rarely felt so welcome. Before me, I had a professor about psychiatry who thought we had a huge problem in society because we no longer live in a society of sorry.
In einer Erfolgsgesellschaft sind die einzelnen Tätigkeiten und Jobs so ausdifferenziert, dass niemand das mehr ernsthaft miteinander vergleichen kann. In dieser neuen Erfolgsgesellschaft.
In this new society of success, the image is the all-important thing. In order to appear successful, you have to show your strength, you have to hide your weaknesses, and you actually have to hide your sicknesses, your diseases. Otherwise, you may lose your job, or at least run the risk of it. You just have to pretend. This pressure to succeed, this will have the very bitter effect in the end that people think that they're the only ones who are having a bad time and that everybody else is doing fine. I don't want to live in a society like this. This is one of the reasons why I'm talking about my own failures and problems on this stage. And at the end of this demotivational workshop, I want to motivate you to do the same thing with your neighbor here in the audience and talk to him. This is how you failed. Respect for that. Thanks a lot for this.
Bevor ihr jetzt alle rausrennt, bleibt noch mal ganz kurz sitzen, bitte. Denn ich hatte eigentlich etwas vor, am Anfang des Talks zu machen. Nico hat mich gebeten, es nicht am Anfang des Talks zu machen. Also, dass er auf den Witz nicht gekommen ist, weiß ich auch nicht. Diese Vorstellung hieß, Freude ist nur ein Mangel an Informationen. Und hier sitzen 4.500 Informationstechniker. Kein Wunder, dass die Hälfte von uns depressiv durch die Gegend rennt. Darf ich alle bitten, ich möchte einmal was gegen Depressionen tun. Und zwar bei den Leuten, denen es wirklich schlecht geht. Viele davon sitzen unter uns. Darf ich alle die bitten, die Depression mal durchgemacht haben und sich von jemandem die Geschichte anhören würden, wo er gerade steht. Und ihm zu helfen, den ersten Schritt zu gehen. Kurz aufzustehen. Und alle anderen sich einfach nur auffällig umzuschauen, dass diese Menschen die Chance haben, sich eine Person rauszusuchen und auf diesem Kongress anzusprechen. Also alle, die mal mit jemandem sprechen würden, alle, die mal durch Depressionen gegangen sind, alle, die ein offenes Ohr für euch haben, bitte aufstehen. Ich hoffe, ihr habt euch jemanden rausgesucht. Ich hoffe, ihr sprecht sie an, weil wir wollen euch nicht auch noch verlieren. Wir sind alle der Kongress, wir sind alle eine Community. Und jetzt zum Schluss bitte nochmal einen riesigen, trampelnden Applaus für Nico Sensrud!
Ich kann jetzt nicht.